today on the pod, welcome to the Freemium Podcast. I'm Curtis Killen. This is Mr. Jacob Geller. Jacob Geller and I actually go quite a ways back. We weren't like super close friends, but we knew each other from Parks program. Jacob, thank you. We're starting 10 minutes late. I know you're not pressed for time, but we need to be punctual and on time in order for today. So welcome to the Freemium Podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got Jacob Geller in the house of Paper. We're going to talk about the company, Montreal-based company. I don't know a lot about the company, and that's what we're going to talk about today, amongst other things.
Great.
And thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. I've been watching it online and got a shout out a couple episodes ago. Got that sent to me from a couple friends, and so connected with you and just excited to be here, man. So thanks for welcoming me on. I think it's awesome you're doing this.
Appreciate that.
And you were telling me before we went live here that you've been doing it for almost a year, and I was wondering, not to steal the question asking here, have you crossed the point of like people making fun of the fact that you have a podcast to people now being interested in it? Because I watched that with my brother. He's an influencer. He's a creator. And it went from so cringe, oh my God, I can't believe he makes videos, to, I actually went to high school with him.
Yeah. But funny enough, my brother's not an influencer per se. He's a YouTuber as well. Okay. But definitely crossed that point. I mean, there wasn't that many. I think maybe because I also run a business, they maybe took it a little bit more seriously. But I'd hear through the grapevine people talking shit, stuff like that. And I'm sure there still are people talking shit. But I would definitely say that I've crossed that line now. And it's actually a lot easier to get guests now.
I'm sure.
Like you're a rep, you're a professional. You're a businessman. You're a professional. You work at a nice company and stuff like that. And it's at the very beginning, I was having difficulty getting guests. Sometimes people would, I'll come on. They never come on. They don't respond. They ghost you. They do this. They do that. It's actually quite a bit easier now. And I've had a few people come up to me and ask to be on the podcast.
It's amazing. Good for you. Congratulations.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. So I got a lot of questions about Paper, and we can go about this a couple of different ways.
Sure.
So here, we'll just start. So Paper, when you tell people, you're like, do I work at if someone goes, Jacob, where do you work at? Are you going to say Paper Co. or just Paper? I work at this company.
Just Paper.
I work at a company called Paper. So talk to us about Paper and how you guys are in the education space, how you guys are like, what's your vision? What's your why? Why do you guys exist? Talk to us about the company that you're at right now.
Well, the reason for the question of Paper Co. is our website is paper.co. And so people see that all the time. The only reason that's our website, we're not trying to be like Pepsi Co. or something like that, is because paper.com is owned by Office Depot. And we have been trying to buy that It's a redirect to Office Depot to go and buy actual paper. And we've been trying to buy that website for years. How
much is it? I'm just curious.
It's a lot of millions to buy that website. Yeah.
Just for that domain name.
Just the domain name. And they're also not selling it. And so that's why people think of us as Paper Co.
Cool.
I do sometimes like lose sleep thinking about how many people are emailing me Jacob@paper.com, and I'm not seeing those emails.
I'm sure it's a lot.
I'm sure it's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the story of the Co. What's the company about? So we're an education company. We're an educational technology company in the edtech space. A lot of people don't know what the edtech space really is. If you went to school here, Omnivox, Moodle, Minerva, any of those systems you might have used in school, kind of terrible.
I remember Omnivox from John Abbott.
Yeah, not sexy, right?
No.
But if you think of other great ed tech, you think like Duolingo, Grammarly, Google Classroom, Kahoot, things like that. That's also ed tech. That's on the B2C side.
Okay.
We're a B2B player. We work with school districts, sometimes individual schools, but typically school districts in the U.S., and occasionally entire states or counties. Huh. What we do and what our mission is what's called educational equity. This idea that different kids are coming in with really different resources. There's the kid who can pay $500 an hour for private tutoring, and their parents don't even really bat an eye at it. There's the kid that has their whole life planned out. They've got job shadowing. Their parents have great careers. They can see this, but that's not the majority of kids. The majority of kids are going to be falling behind in school, not have the resources to pay for it, be too shy to put up their hand, be too shy to stay after school. Maybe they want to play sports after school, so they're not going to stay for extra tutoring. And so how do you build a resource that can support those students? And that was the idea. So when our founder left teaching, basically he was seeing that 10-15% of his kids could just pay for whatever they wanted. Everything was good. But 85% of those kids absolutely were not. And you're asking to grade every kid on the same. even though their resources are different. He said, what if we flip the model? What if we work with the school district, and say, no matter who you are, no matter what type of home you go home to, you've got the resources. And so what we built first was 24/7 tutoring. It's within 15 seconds on your phone, laptop, you can talk to a tutor, any subject, any language, and stay on as long as you want, all paid for by your school. What we've built since then is like a writing review, throw your essay on, get it back within 24 hours. We've got career shadowing, we've got internships, micro-credentials, we've got, for younger kids, like a literacy platform to learn to read. We've got math practice games that you go on and do different things on there. And so what we call ourselves is an educational support system. Not all our products are for every kid, but what we'll do is we'll partner with, some of the largest school districts in the US and say, what's your biggest problems right now that you guys need to solve? Okay, let's get those resources out to those kids, and let's not have it cost the individual families a cent. So that's what we're about.
And the school districts are paying for all this.
School districts pay for it, yeah.
Interesting. When I was on the website, I'm looking around the website, I'm kind of like informing myself, and I want to ask good questions and be engaged, of course. So when I'm doing that, I'm like, who pays for all this? Okay, you answered the question.
That's right.
What's it like getting those contracts or those deals, or, because all school districts, they're going to be unionized, right?
Yeah.
What's it like getting a contract with a union? How do you get a contract with a union?
Well, I can't give away all the secrets, but no, look, it takes time, and it takes a really an obsession with understanding your customer and understanding what their day-to-day is. And so, I'm our head of sales, and I always have been. And so I built out our first. I made all our first sales, and I built out our sales teams and our strategy and our go-to-market and all this.
You're the perfect guy to ask.
I'm the guy to ask, right?
Yeah.
But I never thought I'd work in sales in my life. I thought it was such a dishonorable career and a weird thing to do with your life. And my dad's a principal, mom's a teacher, grandparents are all teachers, so I understand that world a little bit.
Interesting.
And so really what it came down to is you have to understand, I think like any sales job, what's going on in the person's life on the other side. Where do you fit in? We're not everything to everybody, and we can't try to be. And so for a school district, it's about working with the leadership there. It's understanding that you're selling to an organization, not one person. It's understanding their procurement process. Most deals and most ed tech companies will struggle because they cannot understand how you're actually going to be procured. And for a school district leader, they don't want to buy it bad enough to be the one to go figure out how to procure it. So you have to know how to do it, whether that's going out to an RFP process,
What's RFP?
Request for proposal. So, City of Montreal wants new metro cars. They put out a bid for an RFP.
Okay.
In theory, probably not in Montreal, it's a fair process. In Montreal, maybe not. I think that's all right.
Yeah.
But so what that does is then every company bids, say, here's how we would, service this contract. Here's our price. And then what it's supposed to do is incentivize, best prices for public industry and fair practice.
And does it end up being kind of the same thing? And you can answer this or not answer this, but I'll give you an example. Contractors in Montreal are notorious for, they'll get the bid.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, I'll do this project for $1 million. So they'll start doing the project for $1 million, but then during the so just to get the contract.
Yep.
And then during the actual process, they'll go, oh, we forgot to include this, we forgot to include that, we forgot to do this, we forgot to do that. And to be honest, the city, most of the time, it seems like they don't really care because it's not their money. Right. And so that's kind of like how you make your money on the projects. Is it kind of the same thing in this space? Because the reason I'm asking this question is whenever you're going to deal with someone and it's not their money, like I just find it interesting on like what their actual thought process is. So if you're dealing with unions or a school district, it's probably not going to be their money.
Right.
And I just feel like there would be more, I feel like it would just be like, yeah, whatever, just add it on and stuff like that because it's not their money. Like, is there...
So I will answer it. And so no, in ours, it's very regulated what you can charge extra even to the degree of when we renew the second and third year of a contract, it's pre-negotiated how much we can increase the contract.
Okay.
So that's all really taken care of in there. So that's above board.
That answers my question.
Yeah. And so, but on your point of it not being their money, here's how complicated it gets for us, right? So a school district leader, it's not technically their personal money. And beyond that, they're not going to be the one using the product. So they're buying something for someone else, the students, with someone else's money, the community in theory. And so they have to be, so how do you get someone to be sort of something that they're not going to use with money that's not theirs to be so compelled emotionally, because it is a personal sale, right? There is a person making that decision at the end of the day.
Yeah, of course.
To actually want to do this. And so then you have to tap into what really is that person trying to do, right? Are they looking to build a legacy? Are they looking to move up in their career? And so at that point, it does switch from a business motivation to a personal motivation in the sale.
Interesting. That answers my question, definitely. So you're only allowed to increase it by a certain amount, a certain percentage, all this kind of stuff.
If they increase the scope, you can have that pre-negotiated. And so we'll often put out tiers. Let's say they start with, only grades 6 through 12 in their school district. We do K-12 in the US, and they want to add grades 3 through 12. It'll be pre-negotiated.
Okay. And contracts of this, you don't have to give exact amounts again, but they're in the millions of dollars, I would guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. What's the story? Let's back up a little bit.
Yeah,
what's the story? What's the all good. This is all interesting because I'm just like, hey, how do you guys make your money? I thought it was just a private tutoring service.
No. You can't even buy it if you're a parent. You can't even buy what we offer.
Wow, it has to go through the school district. Yep. So you make a really badass product. You walk up to unions, teachers unions, and say, hey, I have this. It's going to help your students. You can get private tutoring whenever you want. Can you buy this?
The unions are tricky, right? Because it's, are we stealing their jobs, right? There's always that question.
For sure.
We're offering the tutoring. It's like, no, we're supporting it. You're overworked, but that can be a contentious issue for us. So us getting on the same side as the union, so you got the unions, you have the school boards, you have the school administration, you have the general public, you have the students. And so there's a lot of different parties you got to kind of align in this deal.
Whew.
But it's worth it because the deals are big, right? And they renew because in schools, when something's in a school, it stays. Yeah. It takes time to develop. And the work's good. At the end of the day, right? I never thought I'd be in sales. But when I'm making cold calls and I'm pushing my team and I'm reading, did they read my email? And I'm playing all those sales games that we play, we can get into it. At the end of the day, we're helping kids who could not afford this actually do better in their life. And it's cool to see. And we see it. The grades move on these kids. It's really cool.
Okay, so I have another question now. So if you're selling it to a school district, and I understand what you guys are trying to do. You're trying to basically give any student access, whether they're rich, they're poor, they're in the middle class. You're trying to give them access to additional tutoring services. So this is outside of the classroom while they're doing their homework, for example, stuff like that.
Yep.
The data that you guys are seeing, does it still end up being, I guess we'll call it the kids with more money? Are they the ones that use the product more than the poor kids?
Oh, that's a great question. And this is always the fear, right? It's do we buy this for the poor kids and then the rich kids end up using it?
I'm just thinking inner city Baltimore or something like that, where the kids aren't going to class anyways. Why would they use this product? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we have to be really targeted in our approach. So we'll launch with a good example is Palm Beach County. So in Florida, they run county systems. So all the school districts are gigantic. So in Palm Beach County, they have, I think, 230,000 students at their school district. And for context, Lester B. Pearson, I don't know if you went through there, is 25,000 kids. Okay. And so they procured us a few years ago for 6 through 12, called 105,000 kids. And when we just started, and you just leave it out there for everybody who uses it, right? The rich who are already doing well to do a little bit better. Kids with A's getting A+.
Yeah, and they're I'm just trying to think if I was a rich kid or a rich parent, I'm going, oh, awesome, now the tutoring's paid for. I don't have to spend. Exactly. I'll get to save $1,000 a week.
But it's not what they bought it for, right? And so we had to kind of pause 3 months in with them and say, hey, we got to change our approach here. And so what we did is there's something called Title I schools, which is effectively schools where majority of the students would qualify for what's called the free and reduced lunch program, meaning that their parents are below a certain socioeconomic level. Mm-hmm. And so we went and we said, okay, we're going to send our team. So we hired an on the ground team down in Palm Beach there. We're going to send them just to those schools, and they're going to go push the usage. We got the local news to come. We put up a billboard on the highway there, in front of all those schools. And so what it did is it got the usage numbers towards who they really bought it for. But you can't just leave it and hope that the right kids use it. It won't work.
Got it. You have to show face. You have to get involved. You have to.
That's right. And,
anytime in sales.
English language learners. That's a super important community. And a lot of times the money that schools are paying for this for is coming from budgets that are put aside for those students, right? And so you have to make sure that you're actually having the impact on those kids. And so we have a team that we acquired a few companies last year. One of them had this amazing kind of research arm to it out of Harvard Education. Okay. And what they'll do is they'll go work with a school district and say, give us all your data, we'll ingest it, and we'll tell you where the gains are happening for which kids, so that you can then go back to your board or to your public who is paying for this and saying, yeah, this investment we're making is paying off or is not paying off.
Do you think in some cases the school FAR system is too far gone? In the sense that it doesn't matter, it's beyond the education system. It's the actual socioeconomic conditions of a lot of the kids, and it's literally it's just too far gone, and it's probably better just to start from scratch.
The school system itself,
yeah, it's just, I just feel like and I'm not an expert on the subject, but I just feel like there are definitely places where it doesn't matter, especially like young boys, where no matter what they're just not going to go to class.
Right.
And they're dropping out at like after grade 6.
Right. Exactly. No,
and I'm talking about cases like that. Do you think those places there are, and this isn't the mission of Paper Co to get everyone back. Yours is, it's like an additional product to help kids learn stuff. But this is kind of a separate question, but more of the bigger picture. Do you think there are some places that the school system is too far gone and kind of?
So I think the focus of it is wrong, and I think I've seen it change in really great schools, and it's not just your like rich private independent schools.
Yeah.
So 30% of kids in the U.S. graduate from a 4-year college, but everyone is basically pushed towards it when they go into their school, right? That's like you go to the 4-year college, whatever school that's what you're
30%.
30% graduate, and so think of that every kid that's coming through there, that kid in grade 6 is being pushed towards that. Yeah. When in the reality, they really shouldn't be, right? They should be being exposed to other opportunities from a young age. They should be seeing that you can become a nurse or
trades.
You could do the trades right away, right? And
Google, you could do
anything, right? Learn to do computer science. Yeah. They should be teaching financial literacy. I've seen stats that like 40% of the world works in some version of a sales role, right? Whether it's customer facing or whatever else.
Yeah.
Almost no schools are going to teach that to you as you go through it. And so and so we actually, our biggest acquisition this year was a career and college platform. And so we've integrated that into our product, because our big bet where we're going is that there's a really low ceiling on just academic motivation for grades. Mm-hmm. But academic motivation tied to actual motivation of what I want to do. And so we did all this polling, and it was like 95% of kids said they would like school more, their attendance would go up, they'd use resources if it tied to stuff that would actually get them a job, if it actually tied to the real world. And so now what we're trying to do in a lot of great schools, and the US is so far ahead of us on this, is by the time you're in grade 6, you're being exposed to becoming a mechanic or an electrician or a plumber or whatever else. Now you're taking your math class, and it's showing you what's relevant in that math class to what you actually want to do. By the time you graduate, you may have done an internship, an apprenticeship, and you may go work right away, rather than everybody being funneled towards the post-secondary traditional system. You do the English or history degree, and it's no hate to that, right? It's for some people, but now 2 years in, you realize you didn't want it. Well, you're $80K in debt.
Yeah.
You're behind your friends. You feel embarrassed. You feel like you failed out of things.
Yeah, and you can't even get a job to pay off
exactly.
the debt.
And so we have in the U.S. particularly, I know the U.S. more than here, 99% of our business in the U.S., but we've got a crisis of engagement with students. We're not engaging with kids in a way that makes sense to them. And like one of the terms we always use is that school is built for people that would have rented a movie at Blockbuster. There's not a kid in K-12 today that's ever stepped into a Blockbuster.
No. Do you remember those nights, those Friday nights?
It's incredible.
Oh, man.
Incredible. And you get 2 movies. I get a video game, too. It was incredible.
Yeah. Walk in. There was all the candy, like, on the way out.
Right.
Grab some candy, grab some popcorn. You get there sometimes. Fuck. The movie's out of stock. Can't get any more.
That's actually kind of, when you think about it, you couldn't look up if it was going to be there or not. You drive there with hopes and dreams to get the new movie.
This is not that long ago. This is like
not that long
15 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not that long. I mean, I'm 34. So when I'm 20, it's not.
It wasn't that long ago. And I had one video store, like Valwa Video near me, and their movies were pretty shit. But then we would go, it was a bit further. We'd get to go to the Blockbuster, and that was a good night.
And they always had in the back, like in the kind of the grungy video, the video rental places, that have all the porn played in the back. It was so funny.
I never went in there. I couldn't even dream of it.
You go in there when you're like, you walk in with the boys, and you one of them would pop out and go, anyways, just boys being boys when you're like 14. Okay, interesting. I'm very impressed by how much you know about this topic, by the way. I expected you to know about this because it is you work in this profession. But I'm very impressed so far with you're able to articulate a lot of things. So here, let's back up. Let's actually back up this time. What's the story of Paper? How did this thing get started?
So story is Montreal founded company. We like to say founded out of McGill Education. So our founder, Phil Cutler, he graduated education, started working as a teacher. He had a couple other ventures in the kind of in the education space, whether it's a more traditional tutoring company, runs a day camp that has a pretty heavy education focus, STEM focus. And then in 2014, he started what was called Grade Slam at the time. I think it was actually called Loris Educational Services first, and the camp is called Loris Summer Camp. So it was like a spin-off of the camp. Became Grade Slam very quickly. And
I like that name, Grade Slam.
We liked it too,
that is a good name.
But people thought it was called Grand Slam, including like the investment the VC that led our Series A sent us a wooden plaque saying "Congrats Grand Slam" engraved in, and we were like, all right, that's probably time to change.
Yeah.
And the problem with grade was that there's a real movement away from traditional grading in schools, and so people thought we were a grade book every time we'd cold call. So we had to get off of it. We needed a name that was a bit bigger for us.
That's a question I'm going to ask you after.
So the story, so it starts out, he starts with the idea, kind of like I talked about before, level the playing field, flip the model to working with the schools, the districts, and what if we could do this online, right? That was the big bet. Everything we do is chat-based. We've got a bit of voice and some like whiteboarding now, but everything was, what if it was built for the kids of today? And it was a chat feature. It was iMessage with a tutor 24/7. Found his co-founder. They, from the apartment, coding it together, did a bit of the, I don't think it was Y Combinator. It was, one of the accelerators here in Montreal, which we have a pretty good scene here for getting off the ground as a young tech startup. Landed a bit of cash, got an office space. I was actually working at Monster Energy at the time, along with being a park leader, and I would drive the monster truck. And one of the other guys who was driving the monster truck with me, what ends up being the first unpaid intern engineer at Grade Slam. And so when he starts there, I was working at another company, and he tells me what they're doing. And I was watching Silicon Valley on HBO, that TV show, and I was like, I want to be part of that life. And I had joined my company, which was great, but I joined it a bit late.
This is how many years ago? 10 years ago, about?
So at this point, we're up to 2016, 2017.
Okay.
And there's not much going on at the company yet. There's no customers or anything.
Yeah.
And then he pitches me this idea. Like my friend Frank, he's like, hey, you should come work at Grade Slam with me, man. You should, at this point I had quit my job. I was freelancing.
Doing videographer stuff.
Doing videographer. I was making YouTube videos, all sorts of stuff, making money on YouTube.
So you wanted to be a YouTuber?
Well, sort of, right? A little bit. This is my big break, Curtis. This could go viral. So he tells me.
I hope it does.
I hope it does too. We got my brother to tweet it out. That'll get us the views.
Yeah.
So he says, come in, we're hiring for a manager of all the tutors. And I couldn't have been less qualified for that opportunity to be like the leader of all the tutors. At this point, we probably had a team of 100 tutors, 50, 100 tutors. And I go in and I meet the two founders, and I interview, and I got a second interview, and I got a third interview, and it goes really well. I like really connect with these guys. I really, my parents are in education. I get what they're about. I think I was 22, maybe 23 at the time. And then I get the email, we've gone with somebody else. We'll keep your CV on file. Oh my God. Whatever. Back to my YouTube dreams.
Kicking the nuts.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. 4 months down the line, I get an email from the CEO saying, hey man, what are you up to these days? Would love to reconnect and talk about an opportunity. Could you come by the office tomorrow? And so I say, sure. I'm not really doing too much. I just signed a new kind of enough freelancing business that my rent was paid. I was paying my whole life as a writer, videographer, and editor, and it's pretty cool. But I go into the office and they sit me down and say, look, this isn't an interview. You weren't really qualified for that first job that we talked about, but you really get what we're about. And boy, can you bullshit and talk with us and improvise. My background's in improv. And so they're like, we want you to come in and help us figure out our product market fit. We have a job called marketing manager. It's like this government grant. We don't know how long it'll last, but we think that by the time we're at the end of it, we'll be able to get you on salary. It sounded scary but interesting to me. And they said, here's the deal though. You got to be here tomorrow morning. We got sales calls at 9:30 and 10. We want you to start listening to it. And so I went home that night. I talked to my parents. They were sort of, very supportive, but also they're educators, so they're not as risky as me. And so of like, are you sure about this?
Yeah.
But ultimately I said, fuck yeah. And I did it and I jumped in. It's the best bet I've ever made in my life. And it's pissed off everyone else, like my freelancing contracts. I canceled everything on the spot and, but here we are.
It's like when you make risks like that but they pay off, it's like such a good feeling.
You make a big bet.
It's definitely a risk on your side. Because
Totally.
dude, at this point now, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a full-blown startup. Like they don't have any money. They're not sure that
this is like the time where sometimes there's a message like, "Hey, we're not going to hit payroll this week. Definitely no insurance." We had a beer keg though. That was pretty sweet.
Okay. So it's one of those things like you're not sure if this company's going to be around in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. Like no one knows.
Well, it's like the question with the podcast, right? Yeah, everyone's like, "Where is Jacob working? I thought he went to university. What is that company? Grade Slam? What the hell is that?" And now. you know, a lot of those people work with us now. So
that's awesome. That's a cool story.
It's been great. And the thing about making a bet like that, you're betting on yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a bit cheesy, but like you have insider information because you know how hard you're going to work.
Yeah.
You know like yourself better. And so if you're willing to make that bet and kind of work for it and be a little bit patient. And, you know, one of the sayings that we all love at our company is, you know, once or twice in your life, you're going to get an opportunity you don't fully deserve. Are you going to be ready for it? And so that's always been the way that we think about stuff. We're constantly preparing for when, you know, your growth is not linear in a startup like us. We'll grow 0%, 0%, 500%, 0%, 200% when you look at the different quarters. And so you're chasing stuff. You're chasing that growth all the time. And it takes a specific type of breed, but man, is it addicting when you're in there.
Yeah, sales is addicting. There's no better feeling than walking in somewhere, especially after a cold call, and getting the sale afterwards. And like converting them because they start off, and it's completely normal. If you're going to walk in off of a cold call, I don't expect them to be greeting me with open arms. Hey, how you doing? Like,
no,
you know, I don't know this person. They don't know me.
No.
But when you convert them, and then by the end they trust you, because that's all it is when you're trying to make a sale, right?
That's right.
You're just trying to get them to trust you by the end.
That's right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I find if you actually do have ill intentions, I mean, you can be. There are salespeople who can be conniving and that kind of stuff, which I think long term you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. But the really good salespeople who are good salespeople over a prolonged period of time are great communicators, and they're honest, and because the other people trust them.
No, you got to have that long-term vision. I mean, our sales cycle can be a year, right? And
I believe it, yeah.
So,
especially dealing with like a union or like a school.
And
big
oftentimes
contracts.
Schools only procure once a year, and
I get it.
So you gotta be hungry, but you can't be thirsty, right? Like that's one of the things we teach our reps all the time is, you gotta get in there and you gotta like really get to know the people, and you gotta, you know, really it's an emotional. What it feel like to meet with you is more important than what you said in that meeting, right?
Yes.
And you showing up to their office and flying out and stuff. Like it's all the little things really do matter. And in our industry, it's even more particular because you're dealing with executives, right? You know, superintendents, whatever else, managing billion-dollar budgets, a team of 1,500, 2,000 employees. But there are also people who have elected to not work in private industry, to not work in for-profit in any way. And so they're often turned off by all things sales, all things businessy. And so how can you go in and still have to ask for the sale and make those cold calls while also not feeling like the people that they don't want to be having to interact with because they've chosen to spend their life in that? And so I think that's been my advantage, is that I didn't go to business. I went to Marianopolis Commerce for like a month. I was like, nope, get me back to theater, went back to musical theater and all that stuff. And so really my background is in improv and understanding people, listening, accepting offers, all this and that. And so all the training I do with my team is foundationally based in the skills of improv and being able to have those real conversations with people.
I have so many thoughts and questions running through my mind just about like the profile of the person of who you're selling to. Well, okay, so this, and I'm going to ask a question. My father, one of his best friends, he works at a CJEP. So he's like he basically runs one of the CJEPs. And he was talking to my dad and he goes, look, because my dad's grown up in private sector. This guy pretty much his whole career has been in the public sector. He dipped his foot in the private sector for about 6 months. Didn't work out. But one of the things he said, he goes, everything moves so slow in the public sector with regards to, like, he works at a Canadian CJEP because everything's just super slow if you compare it to the private sector. So number one, is it like that dealing with these people? And I think the answer is going to be yes, because you're saying sometimes it can take up to a year for this for the district to make a decision whether it's a yes or a no. But like, what is the profile of the person you're the person you're trying to help, or the district you're trying to help? You're speaking to the decision maker. What are they like?
Yeah, so the ultimate decision maker is the superintendent of a school district. That's their title. And so that is someone who is a very specific profile. And so we run this training called Sell Like a Superintendent, which is really all about learning to, exactly who these people are, what was their career path to get to this point. So this person, so that you can be as much like them as possible.
Holy shit, this is a deep dive.
This is a deep dive. This is
wow, impressive. Okay, I'm listening. Go. Go.
So the idea here is to understand that these are people who didn't just fall into this role. This is someone who decided to be a teacher. So somewhere in them, they want to help people, they want to help kids. But somewhere else inside of them, they wanted to move their career forward. Because to become a superintendent, you probably have to be promoted 6 to 10 times. And so the idea that we want to look for is someone who has had a history, when you look on LinkedIn or wherever else, of chasing growth in their own personal career, because that's the person who's more likely to make an investment like investing in paper for their school district. So someone may have went from a teacher to become a principal. Why would they do that? It's not typically for the money. It's they want more influence, power, and they want to have more impact. And then they go, that's not good enough. I got to get to central office, right? And they become the coordinator of secondaries, then they become the director, then they become the assistant superintendent, the chief academic officer, the deputy superintendent.
So it's a driven person.
So you're looking for that, right? These are people, when we go to a conference, they're out till 2, 3 a.m., singing karaoke and drinking, but they're also on the Peloton at 6 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. And then they're presenting at the, as the keynote, and then they're calling back to their board meeting and negotiating teacher salaries. And so this is a very driven individual. And so we need people that operate like that, because like buy from like. And so we have a very specific profile of people that do well at our company.
That definitely answers my question. So you literally, you take them and you...
I know a lot, no one's ever asked me about this. I invested my whole 20s in this stuff. I've never got to tell anybody about it. So it's kind of nice. It's a little bit therapeutic, really.
But you literally take this person and you study them, and you're basically like, okay, and this is how our pitch is going. Not pitch. I'm talking like a salesman, but like, okay, this is how we're going to try and get them to buy our product, because ultimately, obviously, the only way you can sell a product successfully is if you ultimately believe in the product.
That's right.
You have to think you have the best product in the fucking world. Like, you have to think like that if you're a salesperson. Obviously, you believe in that. You believe 100%. That paper is like, it's the best product on the market. How many competitors are in the space?
So just touching on that too, like before, the obsession is with the customer, and then the obsession is, and like our big saying is that our relationship with the customer is in their problem, not in our solution. We're never calling about paper. We're calling about your math scores or about your whatever else. And so that's really important in our approach. Competitors. So now that so we made 3 acquisitions last year, like some of the different products I was talking about.
So you just buy your competitors?
No, we don't. No, so we actually bought to diversify.
Okay.
So
I'm kidding.
In the 24/7 tutoring space, there's a plethora of, basically if you take the word tutor and add an I or a net or a .com or a varsity or whatever else around the word, there's a company that's called that. And a lot of that is outsourced, overseas, and a lot of it's a B2C play that has a B2B arm. But we're really like the leader in the work with the school district, the institutional sales space. But that's the most expensive product you can buy, because you're paying for human time on the other side. You're paying for tutors, whereas everything else is true SaaS. And so all our secondary products, which are now becoming incredibly popular, we have competitors in the reading space. We have competitors in the career and college space. We have competitors in the math practice space, in the writing review space. But as a system, there's really only a couple companies. You're thinking of, some of these other companies that have gone and become platforms like we have. A Power School is a really big one. Edmentum's a really big one. So some of these players, but these are all 30 to 50-year-old companies that have, And
what was the term you kept saying? EdTech.
EdTech, education technology.
EdTech.
Yeah, exactly. Just EdTech.
So it's a big space.
It's huge, right? There's tons of money in it.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's not going anywhere.
No, it's not. It's not. It's definitely not. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting.
I'd never heard of it before I got into it. I'd never heard of this. I knew some of those products I mentioned in the beginning.
So I guess like the market, well, obviously the market's bigger in the U.S. It's always big in the U.S. They're 10x the population amongst other things. But so is there any incentive at all to try and change some stuff here in Canada, or not worth your guys' time at the moment?
I mean, look, if anybody's listening and wants us to meet with them, we will be there in person. Yeah. We'll bring breakfast. But look, we just are not. We're from here. We're just not well received here. We've got a pretty cool deal with the Toronto District School Board.
Why are you not well received here? You're talking Canada in general, or just Quebec?
Quebec's really bad, but Canada.
Really?
Yeah.
And you're Canadian.
I know.
Fucked up.
I know.
Not okay.
I know. And what's what's worse. We'll go to speaking events and be criticized for not working in Canada, and we're like, we're trying.
Fuck you.
Yeah, I know. So. We'd love to. We would love to. And the problem that we solve exists here. Yeah. There's just less of a focus on solving it in the communities, and things do move slower. You could also say there's less of an investment in technology.
They move even slower. So the education people just in general, and again, this isn't a knock on the public sector or anything. They move slower.
It's different.
They move slower in the U.S., so it's already a slow-moving industry.
Yeah.
And in Canada, it's even slower than the already existing slow-moving industry in the U.S.
So here's what I'll say. I think the stakes are higher in the U.S. to get it right because the poverty discrepancies are so big in the U.S. And the best way out of it is through education and through opportunity. And so not solving that in a place, we've worked with Compton Unified School District, right? Like not solving that for those kids, the stakes are really, really high versus here. And it's not to say there's not communities like that, but there's better social programs, whatever way you feel about that kind of are a catch-all. Whereas in the US, like your lottery out of that cycle of poverty is through your school system.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to get like full-blown projects here in Canada. You'll get it's getting worse though. I mean, you could get some really rough spots in Toronto, Vancouver,
sure. No,
Montreal. Like rough for us is not like rough in Compton, like not even close.
And we're 24/7 in French too. That's it, and we still can't work here. Like all our tutoring's available in French 24 hours a day too. And still, it's just.
So are they working with another, like one of your competitors, or they just don't care?
There's a Quebec funded ministry thing called Allo Prof that exists.
And it's run by the government?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not going to go anywhere.
No one uses it. Ask any kid if they've ever used it.
It's run by the government.
No one uses it. And so there's also, I think, a reluctancy to work with private industry here. It feels like education working with private feels like they're like, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm touching the private. Yeah, like I'm sure you get it. Like it's. So it's not that we don't want to. We'd love to. We'd welcome the opportunity, but
it's a shame because at the end of the day, it's the kids who suffer.
That's right. It's
you know what I mean?
That's right.
It's bullshit.
We've done some interesting deals here, though. We've worked with the Q, like the hockey league, for 5 years. Because every kid there, yes, some of them are going to be in the NHL, are going to be Sidney Crosby, but most of them aren't, right? Most of them are going to need an education, so we offer them
95% are
right?
not.
And so we work with the WHL, OHL. We've always worked with them. We work with Canadian Olympic Committee, so every kid that's a carded athlete has access to our stuff. We've done Queen's University, York University. So we've done kind of these secondary, tertiary opportunities in Canada, but not the traditional school system.
And it's always remote.
Always remote.
Yeah. And so the video, it's like, I'm going to assume it's built on top of like a Zoom platform.
So it's not video. It's not video at all. It's all chat based. And so with audio, we were video, and kids hated it. They would use tape on the webcam and then just use our little chat box on the side. They didn't want to be on camera at all. I know. And so it was weird to us. And so they pop it open, app, phone, laptop, iPad, whatever.
Yeah.
And then within 15 seconds, they're chatting with somebody. Some sessions will be 10 minutes. They want to stay on for a little bit, chat with a tutor. But we've seen like 8 hours. If a kid missed school for 2 weeks, and they go and they cram and they stay on as long as they want.
Huh. And is the product more used by people in elementary school or in high school or in post-secondary education? What's the most popular
So we're a K-12 offering, so we don't really do higher ed. We have a little bit of higher ed.
K-12 means kindergarten to grade 12, right?
Yes, I'm just so used to saying that. Yeah. You don't speak ed? Come on.
Yeah. I'm like, I was pretty sure that's what I meant, but I wasn't 100% sure.
No, yeah. And so I'd say our best usage comes in middle school, kind of 6 to 8, which is the grades there. But down below grade 2 is a little tricky. Once a student hits grade 3, they can really use our platform well. And then, but the way they use it changes, right? The youngest kids will use our reading platform. Middle school, high school will use our tutoring really heavily. And then our older students will start to use the career platform where they can put in resumes. They can do their CV with us. They can so there's kind of, you can kind of grow up with the platform.
Okay, I want to kind of talk about a little bit bigger picture now or stuff. So one of the questions I put in there, and you actually mentioned this a little bit earlier, so we're going to take a little bit of a segue. So grades. You mentioned that schools are moving away from grades, whatever that means. We'll get into this. But my question is, do you think that this movement away from grades is rewarding mediocrity as opposed to rewarding excellence? Like I keep hearing, I'm not in this space, and maybe just the media and the content that I'm exposed to online is kind of tilted one way as opposed to another. But it's just like you keep hearing, oh yeah, schools are getting rid of grades, everyone gets a medal, or no one gets a medal at all. It's like kind of, it's just
participation culture,
all this bullshit and stuff like that. And it's basically, is this rewarding mediocrity? And does this, like, I have my opinion, I'll tell you it after, but do you have an opinion on that question there? Did I explain that question well?
Yeah, no, and I understand what you're saying, and I think it's a little overblown in the, like, they're getting rid of grades and there's going to be nothing. I think that's where it's like the piece is missing. Yeah. So grades traditionally are oversimplified because they're when you go all the way back for schools and design for factories and all that, it's like an assembly line for those kids. And so it's missing a lot of the actual skills that the kids are having. So a lot of schools are moving towards like project-based learning stuff or competency-based. And so it's not to say that they're not measuring understanding and proficiency on this. It's just they're changing it from standardized testing, which then comes out as saying, oh, they're not grading schools anymore. So it's just a change in the way that they're doing it. It's really hard to get right, though, because like, how do you design any type of evaluation that can then serve everybody. It's almost impossible.
I don't think you can.
Exactly.
I don't think you
exactly.
can.
Exactly.
And there's no perfect system, and we just have to kind of work within that framework. But you're not going to.
The best assignments that I see are ones that are framed as, prove to me that you understand X, and then you kind of leave it open ended for that student, and you show proof of understanding towards something and leave it a bit open-ended for those kids. But like that works when you're in an independent school with 13 kids in a class. And so it's really hard in the big systems, because what else are you going to do? You got 40 kids in the class. You're worried about behavioral issues. So it's hard. You got to pick your poison at those big schools.
So overall, what you're saying is that they are not necessarily just trying to move towards mediocrity and make sure that we don't hurt any kids' feelings. You're basically saying they're just trying to, I guess, like pinpoint and make it more specific to giving grades to people based off of their strengths, I guess you could say. That's what they're trying to do.
So it's less about the grades. I think it's more about, and this is really hard to measure because once a kid graduates, you can't really legally follow where they end up.
No.
Because the grade they got in school isn't a really good evaluation of how good the school was. It's what did they do with their life afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And so the push is towards placement into enrollment, employment, or enlistment in the U.S.
If you had a child today, so let's say your kid is 17, they're just graduating from high school here in Quebec, would you encourage them to go to a university today?
It depends, right? Like I went to university, and then I could say I don't really use my degree. I kind of do. My brother didn't go to university. My sister didn't go to university, and my parents are all educated. My family's all educators. So I think it would depend on the kid, which is kind of a cop-out answer. I'm pretty pro SAGEP here. I think it's a good system because for a really cheap amount of money, you can kind of stumble and figure out you don't want to go and invest all this time and whatever.
I'll agree with you there. I would agree.
It's like $200 a year.
Yeah.
Like 60% of kids change.
It's high school.
Exactly.
Basically
and so
it's
like this test run that I think is a pretty good system. But then beyond that, like so many kids that are in university shouldn't be there. And what they're doing is they're wasting money. And we're lucky here money-wise, but like you're also stunting your growth elsewhere. And so, but is it their fault? Like what were they exposed to in high school? I'm sure there's great kids that you could get, working here, that you could train up, fresh out of SAGEP or whatever else. They're not being exposed to this. Maybe you guys are doing a better job, but like it's tricky.
Yeah. Like I would not send, I would discourage my child if they were about to go into university, unless they're going to the STEM fields.
Yeah.
If there was anything
Look, I want my
right
doctors
now,
to go to university, right?
Yeah, of course. Like that part there, like STEMs, doctors, lawyers, engineers, all that kind of crap. Absolutely. Like go get your degree, finish it, do the education system thing. But if I had a mini-me and they were coming in or I had the opportunity to redo what I did, I wouldn't go to university. Yeah. I think it was a complete waste of time. I had horrible grades. So when you
hired, how much are you looking at university?
I am not looking at university at all, and for a couple of reasons. One, I find that they're brainwashed coming out of universities, and the universities have gone like full blown, not in every department, but like the humanities, they've gone full blown woke. Yeah. Like these people this is not normal behavior.
No.
It's not. And it's like, everything's about like social justice. It's like an obsession, and it's not free. You're not allowed to. The most ironic thing about these types of people is that they claim to be for like diversity and like all this type of stuff, but they're not for diversity of thought. You have to toe the line. You have to think exactly the way that they're thinking. Yep. And I wouldn't hire, if I see like that type of stuff or there's a profile and I get a CV, I just throw it out because I don't want them coming here and then infecting the office.
100%.
It's like, and I'm sure like one of my buddies, he works at, the buddy, I won't say his name, but like the company he works at, they hire a lot of students fresh out of university. Okay. And he's like, the culture in the office is not like what it was like 6 years ago because you're walking on eggshells all the time. Yeah. You're always going to offend fucking someone, man.
Yeah, I know.
It's ridiculous.
I know. It's like the last thing I look at on the CV when I'm bringing people in. I'm
fuck
like, what,
that. I actually like it when they're not, and if they come in, give a really good interview. Yeah. And I'm like, I like this guy.
Well, especially in a sales role, right? It's like, what does it feel like?
I couldn't care less about your degree if you're in sales.
You want to know my dream hiring? I've been pitching this for 6 years at our company, and it's really expensive, but I think hiring the wrong people is more expensive. Yeah. And so is that for everyone you hire, you say, I need you to come to Montreal. Maybe you do a phone screen, whatever else. I need you to come do the interview with me in Montreal. And so let's say they live... let's say they live in LA and we want to hire them, right? Cool. And so I say, you need to come to Montreal for your final interview. The hiring manager has to fly to where the person lives
Yeah.
And they have to book the same flight home as that person, and they're going to spend the travel day with that person. Because I believe that if you can go through a travel day with somebody and you see how they board a plane, when it's delayed, how do they react? Hey, can you watch my bag? Watch someone's behavior on a full travel day. You will know all you need to know if you can work with that person. And so I've been pitching that forever. We have never done it, but I really think it'd be a great hiring practice.
Yeah, that would definitely be a good hiring practice. It would be expensive. But the point you just made earlier.
Getting it wrong is really expensive.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
There's nothing more expensive than not closing deals.
Yeah. Or like getting employees, spending all your time. It's like that is a big thing. I think I was reading a stat somewhere. So this is just private sector average. When you hire someone, 50% of the time they don't work out. And if you can get that up to 70% of the time, where so only 30% of the time it's not working out, you're saving a lot of money, a lot of money.
Huge.
And employee turnover, like people don't realize that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's fucking expensive, and it's frustrating too for managers.
Yeah,
because they're spending time. Like imagine how it happens. You're investing all this time into someone to try and help them grow or help them adapt to the system you have at your office. For us, it's like trying to teach them insurance, trying to do this, trying to do that, and then 6 months later. See you later. So we've wasted, it's the opportunity cost, return on time invested.
Could have done that with someone else,
Yeah, the managers, it's a reality. It happens. Like I'm not saying you can't get rid of 100%.
And you can't stop hiring because of that.
No,
but,
of
but
course.
if you can, like you're saying, tilt those percentages a bit.
Yes,
Which is kind of my push for what I'm saying. I know it's a bit hyperbolic what I'm saying, but I think it would work.
It's a good idea. Yeah, it's a very good idea.
Certainly for an executive, when you're hiring an executive remotely, like I think that would, any manager, and it's like it also puts the test on the manager. Like, how sure are you of this person? Are you willing to uproot and fly for that day? Fly to LA and back and hang out with that person.
I heard this really badass. So I won't say his name, but for one of so he got hired by another company. I won't even say the industry, but he got hired by a company. It was an executive position. Okay. He had a high position at already existing other insurance company. I just said insurance, but it doesn't matter. He had a
what industry is it?
He had a good job at another insurance company, and he was kind of flip-flopping back and forth because he was getting poached by this other insurance company. He didn't know what to do. He's going back and forth in his head, back and forth. He's like, fuck, I really think it'd be a good opportunity, but I have all this, I have a good opportunity here, and I have stability here, and this and that. So the executive or VP, whatever, from one of the insurance companies trying to recruit him, goes, meet me at the airport in an hour, okay? Because every insurance company had offices in Toronto. So he's in Toronto. Goes, I'm going to fly to you. I'm going to come see you in Montreal. So he flies there. This is the most badass thing ever. He goes, I understand exactly what you're going through right now. He goes, I'm going to tell you what the job position entails. He goes, I get the insurance company you're working at. It's a great company. He goes, you want to come work here? He goes, high risk, high reward. It's like, you can make the decision. He goes, yes, it's a risk to come and work here, but here's the reward if this does work out. And he bounced. So came here in person, said that.
Matters, right?
And the guy goes, I took the fucking job.
Yeah, of course.
He's like, this is like, he's an athletic guy. He wants to fucking, he's like, that's the best pitch I've ever had.
I think it would work.
I want to do that one day.
You should do it.
But yeah, okay, cool. So we got talking about that, mediocrity, all this type of stuff. Paper. What is the vision moving forward? What's the end goal? I know this is a very vague question. Sure. It's like a philosophical question. There's never an end goal because we're in business and we're maniacs. But it's like, what's the vision? Let's call it the near term vision for PaperCo. No, you know what? Fuck that. What's the bigger vision for PaperCo?
The bigger vision.
Talk to me about like what's the actual. What are we going after here, in the future?
So I think long term, the idea of learning needs to be divorced from school, because you learn stuff all the time. And so what would it be like if we were, the go-to learning platform, whether, when you start thinking about the introduction of AI and things like that into the work that you do. Interesting. And so what would it mean to have an assistant on you all the time, right? If your car tire exploded on the side of the highway, is a YouTube video going to help you, or is chatting it through with someone and sending them a photo and having a coach and whatever else? And so I think longer term, being able to support learning all the time. I think in-place work development is a really big opportunity for us. I think going global is a big opportunity for us. But today we still haven't scratched the surface of North America K-12 school districts, honestly. And so there's still so much opportunity so it's hard because the opportunity is so broad and vast, but you can get distracted. And so, so it's hard. So we try to keep ourselves focused at the same time.
Because you're still so it's not even close to, you're not even close to running out of opportunities to grow the business.
Especially having gone through those acquisitions, we're now in all these different spaces. You know, we can compete in the literacy space like we didn't used to before, and these are all different funding pockets for schools, and so. So it's hard because like long term, we could teach anybody anything. That would be very cool. We can like be this, associated with like when I need to learn something, I turn to paper, and that's.
Are you guys? Would you say you're at that point now, or you're teetering with it? You can see the line of maybe you are getting distracted from the vision that paper started with right now because you've purchased all these other companies and stuff. Has it become a distraction?
I don't think it's become a distraction. I think it's when you try to go out and compete and become masters of all those spaces at the same time.
You end up becoming the master of nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so what we've really those acquisitions weren't to stand on their own. They were to create this kind of platform together. Yeah. And so now training on the value of what would it mean to be reading, get stuck, and then have a tutor available to you. So take those two products and match them together at the same time. So, but it's hard, man. It's hard because the opportunity is huge, and you just open your eyes and you look and you think, no, we got to stay focused. We got to stay focused. I'd say it's it's probably one of the top threats to our business is the inability to focus. We're young guys. We're nuts. And there's opportunity everywhere.
ADD,
and you chase it. And so, so having that kind of discipline to stay focused, stay on the project, and saying no to things, saying no to opportunities that you could be chasing.
If I was in your space, I feel like what I would go after, and again, I don't know anything about your space, so I'm completely talking out of my ass right now, but I feel like the end goal, would it not be to create your own university, I guess, or your own education system to basically give education at a fraction of the cost of what university or college costs today?
Yeah, I think that's a great example of something that we should and want and probably will do. And we've even thought about what if we had, we called it Grade Slam University or Grade Slam U to, a name back to the old name and have a physical space and all that also focusing on that right now will make us miss what we're trying to do today. And because there's a lot involved. You gotta go fight and lobby for years to become a credentialed education place and all. And so,
oh goodness.
Yeah. So it's tough because it's like, that would be the dream, right? Like for a kid to be able to go through with us instead. And if we could prove that you're more likely to find, meaningful employment after going through us, like, isn't that really what it's all about at the end of the day?
Yeah. And you mentioned the actual space, so the not the unions. What was the word you just used? I forget the words used. But I feel like going up against institutions like a Harvard or a Yale, or like they're going to lobby against this kind of stuff because they make so much money. But the issue with these universities,
but that's a great space though. Like if you look at like Udemy, Coursera, like a lot of these places that do masterclass is really great. Like they're places to go and then I think when I see somebody that's done some like micro credentials or little credentials on different places like that, like that's kind of more interesting. I'm like, sick that you learned that. Like, oh, and then if you can tell me why you learned it, even better, right? Like, and that's really, really interesting.
I'm happy this is changing where it's just people, it's not all of a sudden like, oh, you didn't go to Harvard, you didn't go to Yale, you didn't go to Oxford, you didn't go to like these places here. It's like employers are starting to, in many cases, actually, if they see that, they don't want to hire you because it comes with baggage and stuff like that.
I didn't go I didn't do any. I was in Oklahoma the musical when I was in college. Yeah. Like I wasn't doing that. You're learning people. You study people.
There's a stat. Do you listen to the All In podcast?
A little bit. I see. You know what? I say I listen to it, but I really see TikTok clips of it.
Okay.
So, but I'll tell people I listen to it. I'll tell people I read something when I just saw it on TikTok all the time.
Everyone says that.
I read. Yeah, I think I read that.
Yeah, I listen to your podcast. I know how many people listen to it on Spotify. It's not very many. All the views. No, I'm serious. All the views come from the reels and like the YouTube videos. That's where all the interaction is. It's like, oh, I listen to your podcast. I'm like, oh, thanks, man.
Podcast is an audio, format. I'm obsessed with watching the video of it. I watch YouTube. I know it's so much better.
Everybody is.
It's so much. Why is that?
I don't know. I think the only time people are going to listen to the full audio version is if you're doing stuff. So you're going for a walk with the dog. You're working out.
If I'm biking outside, I'll do a podcast.
Yeah, you shouldn't be listening to stuff while you're biking.
Well, it's one AirPod in, one AirPod out. Yeah. Actually, I won't listen to music because there's no breaks in the sound, so I worry about the cars. But I will listen to podcasts because I can still hear the cars.
Do you ever listen to audiobooks?
I don't.
Do you read?
I don't read. People recommend books to me. People will mail me books, and I
never read them.
They're always, and you should read, Jacob. You should read this book. I'm like, just don't.
It's a lost art, I find, reading today, and I'm guilty myself. I don't really read. I keep saying I want to read more. I do listen to podcasts. I'll listen to solid, and this is not exaggerating. I'd say 4 to 6 hours per week of an educational, conversational podcast. Not like Like Call Her Daddy podcast. Nothing against Call Her Daddy listeners and stuff like that.
I mean, look, I'll listen to that, but then I'm mixing in my fantasy football podcast. Right?
Yeah,
I want to know what's going on there, and so a little bit of this, a little comedy.
Who's your team?
Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
They got a good team.
Big game Monday.
He's a San Francisco fan.
Big game Monday against Philly.
Yeah,
that'd be exciting.
What's your opinion on the Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce saga?
Man, I don't know. I don't think
you could say you don't care.
Yeah, I know. It's like I feel like it's just like if you put all of the internet into ChatGPT and said like spit out the most internet story, that's what you would get. It's great. I guess I don't know what am I supposed to say. It's good for the game. Like it's bringing more women to the sport. Like I don't know how you even have a take on this. I don't know.
It's actually hilarious because my girlfriend, she's kind of like, let's go watch the game. She doesn't watch football, but now she's a Taylor Swift fan.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my God, this is amazing.
I guess that's good. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I love her music. I heard her show
too.
is absolutely
I would love to go.
Next love. So would I.
You know what's weird though? Everyone is like more than the show, the industry around buying and selling her tickets. I have a lot of friends that are just their game is to buy the tickets and then sell the tickets and then make the money on it. I know.
It's crazy. I think in New York, some of the tickets, I think the cheapest ticket was like $1,000. And you're in the nosebleeds.
Yeah. You're not seeing her.
It's not like that. So she just launched, there's tickets in Vancouver for December 2024. I know this because of my girlfriend. So it's like she bought tickets for that. I was actually surprised at how cheap they were. Well, cheap.
Yeah.
She's up near the stage. I think it's like $400
each.
Yeah, that's not bad for a Taylor Swift
concert.
No. I mean, you're doing that in New York or LA.
For sure.
LA, I bet you that's like
so
$5-10 grand.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, something like that. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about? Paper or stuff like that?
I mean, I think.
Do you guys have plans to? It's a private company for now, right?
Yeah.
So, here, I got a question for you. So you guys had a big fundraising round.
Yep.
You raised, it was on the internet, so it's obviously public. So it's $270 million.
That was our Series D, yeah.
That's a lot of money.
USD.
Jesus. And who are most of these investors, if you're allowed to say? And also the next question after that, do you guys have plans to go public eventually?
I think we have goals, not plans to go public, because going public, right, is just another funding source for you. And so are you timed and positioned to go public and be successful public? I think we've seen this last year, a lot of companies go public and fail at going public afterwards. Yeah. And so that's the last thing we want to do. But I think long term, right, like that is the dream, is to be able to do that and become successful as a public company. You know, all those employees that have equity in the company that joined on equity, what that would mean for them. I think that's huge. And the investors, so we have had a different lead for every round that we've done, Series A, B, C, and D. It's all venture firms. You watch We Crashed? You watch that, that show?
Oh, yeah.
That's a good show.
Yes.
Bit of a scary tale as if you're a guy in a startup, though, I'll tell you that. It's
WeWork it was the dumbest idea to begin with.
I
mean, it's basically let's just go spend a bunch of money on betterments, tie ourselves into these leases that are enormous, and then just rent it back. But
that's how good that guy was at sales, though.
He was, but it was also the frenzy going on in the market. Right, I think it was a perfect storm and stuff like that.
Really. But that's one of those tales you watch as some, we've been, hyper capitalized. And so you're careful when you watch stuff like that.
Yeah. And there's just a lack of due diligence. Like one of my buddies, he was insuring a company and they were trying to go public. Now they're not going to go public. And I think also too, a lot of times when they go, the environment wasn't right to go public. I think they're also a little bit afraid because the market is going to get a real look underneath the hood. And I think they're just lying to themselves, and what they're probably saying to themselves is the market's probably going to tell us that the company is not worth as much as we think it's worth.
That's right. There's bodies.
And most of the time, that's what's going to happen. And sometimes it goes the opposite way. But like right now in the stock market, I love following the stock market, but like the stock market right now, they want profits.
Yeah.
They want growth obviously too, but you need to be profitable. Unless you're going like 200-300% per year, then they don't care that much. But you still can't be burning a fucking shit ton of cash. Yeah. Like they're not going to be giving you money.
Not like 2 years ago.
No, not like 2 years ago. Well, you know this better than I would. So it's like right now. So when did you get this Series D you just got? Like this was what, 6 months ago, 5 months ago?
No, like a year, a little over a year ago.
A little over a year ago. Okay, so
maybe more, maybe almost 2 years ago, like a year and a half ago.
Okay, so they were just probably just about to turn their mindset of going like, okay, do you think that you would have gotten that same amount of money today?
It's a good question.
And this isn't a knock.
I don't think so because the multiples are down today.
Yeah.
So I think your multiples of ARR, right?
Yeah.
So I think probably not, just looking at the multiples out in the market. our company's grown. We've doubled in ARR since then, but I think even when you follow the multiples, probably not.
That's crazy. What's like for a tech company? What is for those that are listening, ARR is annual recurring revenue. What's a multiple of what a company would go for their ARR?
So I was watching, I was watching the All In podcast, aka a clip yesterday, and they were saying that there's all these companies that are doing 3 to 5x ARR right now, whereas earlier there had been I'd seen 30x ARR at certain points, and so I think the real, like anything, the real answer's in the middle somewhere there, and it depends on the company and the space that you're in and the growth rate and whatever else. Because if your ARR is flat, you're not growing, then you're not going to get one of those bigger multiples.
3 to 5 ARR, that's actually insurance.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, that's insurance. And insurance is not as scalable as a SaaS product or a tech product.
Yeah.
If you really, really, really want to like scale it, fucking scale it, the only way to do it is to buy.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's why private equity is very, very, very big in the space. Private equity is like VC. This is something I learned not too long ago. I didn't know this because I asked one of my buddies, I'm like, what's the difference between private equity and VC firms? Like, they're both investing, injecting cash into company, taking equity. What's the difference? And the guy goes, VCs are looking for like that, that unicorn. They want to have like that scalability. They want to have 100% plus growth per year. They don't care as much about profits right away. Private equity, it's more on the 100% less, so doubling the company or less percentage growth per year, and they're more after profits immediately. So it's like the nice thing about insurance is that the private equity people, if they come in, they're basically just fucking mastermind operators.
That's right.
They'll come in, they'll buy, they will trim the fat, they will just make it run more smooth. But the issue right now going on, it's good for people like me. There's so much consolidation in the market of insurance that allows people like myself, we're only 32 employees. Okay. It's easier for me to go and get new business, especially in commercial insurance, because it's so big and they've lost that personalization.
Interesting.
They've lost that go see the clients, go. It's like clients are underserved.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not the fault of the CEO. I mean, if there's a client.
Then there's a math equation to underserve. There's deliberate underserving because it doesn't cost as much as they're saving. And it's very simple.
Yes.
And so, but it's like, what do you want to do? For me, it's also like, what do I want to do with my days? It's like, it's like, I don't know if I want to work in a place like that. I like serving a client. I like doing something that's not scalable every once in a while. And it's fun.
Yeah.
It's human.
Is yours, would you say that your company is super scalable? It sounds like it's super scalable.
It's scalable. But we're still in the VC world, and so our VCs, of course, support, and they sit in our board. They're pushing us to be, capital efficient and operate well. And we were very selective with which VCs we brought in. That brought different skill sets that had taken different companies in different directions. Because ultimately, they're really coaches for us. Like I can call up any of them and get coaching anytime I need. It's really, really nice.
How hands-on are they?
When needed, right? So when we're trying to hire a new executive, they'll really help with that. Or we're trying to, move our financial model in a different direction. They'll bring in a bunch of their associates to help out with that when needed. But also there's a big amount of trust. There's a lot of like, okay, you guys go figure that out. We'll see you afterwards. But them being critical is not the opposite of great. Them being indifferent is when you're in trouble. When they're not at the board meeting, when they're not caring anymore, you want them to be on your ass. That means that they're still in it with you.
What's your opinion on consultants?
Well, I gotta be careful because you had my buddy Jeff on here, and he's a consultant.
But it's like it's really funny. I don't know where this came from. I find it hilarious. But like social media, maybe because I get business video content and stuff like that. Social media has just been hammering consultants.
I think it, again, overblown a little bit.
Yeah, probably.
I was speaking at a McGill Days Hotel event last week, and all these kids, 90% of the room wants to be KPMG, Deloitte, right? All that stuff. And good for them if that's what they want to do. Yeah. Couldn't pay me to do it. But they had a guy from Accenture speaking. He was awesome. And I asked him, when they were doing the Q&A, I was like, what's the worst thing that people have ever told you about consultants? And he's just like, how much time do you have, right? So I think there is a culture around that. There's the, oh my God, they're here, they're cutting our company down. And so I think that, we've worked with some consultants. I think the long-term ones are the best. I've had some that I've worked with. I have a sales consultant I've worked with for 6 years. He knows my team. He knows our process. He knows the ups and downs. And like when I meet with him every 2 weeks, it's just so valuable because he has the context versus the ones that come in, they do a 2-4 month or week stint. They get their cash, they get out.
A lot of times too, it's just like I find maybe I'll use a consultant one day. I don't know. I've never used a consultant up until now, but I feel like a lot of times they will come in. So let's take a McKinsey, for example.
Sure.
They'll come in. They will do what the founders or CEO or leadership of the company doesn't have the balls to do. So they'll come in and like they will know if they need to fire people or not. Yep. They know.
Yeah.
And a lot of times McKinsey's like, okay, well, your EBITDA margins, you're at 20%. You need to get to 30%. Well, the first thing you're gonna fire a bunch of people. And then the CEO is going to be like, well, it wasn't me. It was these people that did it.
It's emotional, right? It's handing off the emotional part of it a little bit.
Yeah, and I feel like also, too, and I can relate because if you're the founder, especially if you're the one that built it all up, like you do have a certain level of attachment to these people. There's an emotional attachment. It's like the saying goes, you always want to think with your head, not your heart. But if some of those people have been there for the whole journey and they've actually been trying to contribute to the company, it is very tough emotionally. You're like, fuck, I gotta get rid of these people, man. I'm sure it's a very challenging thing to do. I've never had to do mass layoffs, thank God. I hope I never have to, but it looks like it fucking sucks. And I don't like though when I see these people or these CEOs or like a lot of them, they don't have the fucking cojones to walk in, give it face to face. They do it over a fucking phone call or something like that. It's like, yo, dude, give them the respect. Yeah, you're gonna get eaten alive. They're gonna be pissed. They're gonna say, go fuck yourself. Be a man or a woman and do it face to face. That's my opinion on that type of stuff. I hate when I see corporate America and it's just a bunch of people. Like
earlier this year when all those calls were getting leaked, like the different layoff calls, that you ever see a bunch of those?
Yeah,
those are pretty bad.
They're pretty bad, and I mean, I guess in a remote environment, it is a little easier said than done. Like I'm being critical of.
There's logistics. You're not going to fly everyone in.
No, you're not, and pay for. You're trying to cut costs. You're going to pay $1 million to get everyone in and do like you're not going to do that.
It's tricky.
But if you're the leader of an office, you should be doing it face to face.
100%.
I had this. My buddy told me this story. Andy Roy, God rest his soul. He's not with us anymore. He passed away like about a year and a half ago. Weird way to pass out. He had like a brain aneurysm or something. Wow. He wasn't that old. He's like mid 60s. But anyways, he had a buddy, and he went to go work at CN, the railway company. Yeah. And he was specifically there to go just one after the other, just fire all. There was a lot clean house, but. I'm like, man, he fired 600 people over the course of a year, but one by one, face to face.
Wow.
And I'm like, was this guy a psychopath, Andy? And he goes, no, he loved it. I'm like, okay, well, so yeah, he was a psychopath. He goes, no, the people that he was firing, there's the opposite side too. He goes, he had no problem firing any of these executives or higher level positions because they had developed this, they were comfortable, entitled, didn't really do any work.
Sure.
And there are zombie companies that get to this point, and there's a lot of people that come in, and it's like you can ask this person what they do. They probably can't answer the question. It's like, okay, do you do anything here? So he was firing or attempting to fire.
Office Space, where they bring in the consultants, and they're like, what do you do here? And they're like, oh, not much. And they're just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
It's that. But I think it happened. Yeah, I don't know. There's no good way to do it. I think anything that's not genuine is going to smell it like that. And so you're better off just being genuine with this stuff.
And they're going to be mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes they'll pretend to be mad and they won't actually be mad. In their head, sometimes they'll just say it out loud. I've never had this, but I've heard like people have had that have told me this. Be like, fuck, what took you so long? Like they know they're going to get fired.
I've never had that.
They're trying to get fired.
I've never had that. That sounds pretty funny.
Or like quiet quitting and shit like that. They're like, I haven't
Makes
worked.
Sense.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah, man. I checked out like a month ago, bro. It took you a month? Cool. See you later.
They're already employed somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
I had one of that where I was like, this guy definitely has another job. It was like the start of COVID, and there was a lot of people doing that. I was like,
Okay, perfect. Perfect segue. Work from home.
Here we go.
Work from home.
Your hot button. You should change the name of the podcast.
Yeah, work from home. Bro, it's like really starting to... I lost sleep over it the other night. It's fucking bothering me.
What part?
Lot.
I work from home. So
we have this big space, and there's not enough people in here. And mind you, we hired some people, and they do a great job overall.
Yep.
That don't live in Montreal.
Sure.
Some live in Sherbrooke. One guy lives in North Shore. Like there's the girl that lives, and she's great. She's fantastic. She's not going to drive 2 hours every day to get to work. It's not going to happen. So there are realities. I'd like to have it somewhere in the middle. But when I walk in here to this big, beautiful office that we rented 2 years ago and have a golf simulator for, if you're looking to work in insurance, contact Curtis Killen. It bothers me.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
So what's your opinion on work from home?
So for us, I can only really share for us.
No problem.
We need to have people hired in many different markets. You know, the Palm Beach thing I'm telling you about before. So we need people all over the place. So they obviously logistically can't work from it. Mm-hmm. But we need to get people together as often as possible, mm-hmm. or our culture completely rots.
Yeah.
And so we invest. So we're a remote first company, hybrid company that invests a ton of time and money into in-person gatherings, in-person experiences. So, you know, I think I was telling you before, like, we have an office here in Montreal. We have an office in Vegas. And so, you know, yesterday our office here was full and we had a 5 set afterwards. And so, but during the day, you get those amazing moments of that person who you're not going to schedule a Zoom call with home to home 30 minutes, who just walks by you and, hey, Jacob, I was wondering about that thing. Oh yeah. Hey, pop in here for 5 minutes and you solve an issue, right? Kind of those passerby issues. And that's the magic of it, right? And that's like the seeding of the culture. But then at some of our bigger events, when we want to get everybody together who live in, you know, Montana or San Francisco or wherever, then we'll give a bit of notice and say, hey, we're going to do, you know, what we call an office takeover. And so our offices are deliberately bigger than they need to be. They have a ton of breakout rooms. They're, you know, the walls are whiteboards. Like, they're built to be collaborative spaces. And so we'll fly everybody into, you know, Vegas. We did a customer office takeover a month ago, and then we did PE, which is product engineering office takeover, 2 weeks after that. And so for 4 nights, flew everybody in. We've got this great deal with this like little hotel, airport hotel. We're not Caesars here or anything like that. We're in Vegas. It shares a parking lot with our office, and we just work from that office each day, and we have some programming, some guest speakers. And so what that does is everyone has those moments. They rebuild the culture, and now your online experience is better, but it's not going to stay that way. It starts to detract again. So we're already planning the next one, right? How are we going to do this
How
again?
often do you do these events?
So often as we can afford. And it's also a question of how often can you afford to not do it? It's kind of that same argument.
How expensive is an event? How many employees are you?
So at one of these, we'll bring between 50 and 100 people together at a time.
Okay.
And
so it's costing...
So you're depending on the flights and whatever else, 100, 200 grand to do this every time. Yeah. But it's the cost of 1.5 bad hires, right? Yeah. So, and so...
Fair enough.
And so you got to do it. I think it's important. That's a good
way to look at it.
I think you got to do it. I think it's an important thing to do. It's really fun. People talk about it. It builds... It strengthens that thing. And so, like, we really, really believe that at the end of the day, it's not even your comp plan or anything else. The hours you're supposed to work that's going to keep you motivated, it's going to make that extra call, whatever else.
Working towards a common goal.
It's the people that are next to you. It's like, who else are you letting down, right? Yeah. How much do you care about those around you, right? They got when I worked here, when we had no salaries, like we had nothing else at all, it was because of the people sitting next to me. And so how do you recreate that in a virtual environment? It's not through virtual 5 sets and Kahoot games online and all that shit.
No,
it's not. It's through having these in-person experiences. And
how often are you guys doing the in-person experiences? So I get the big corporate company event is just like once, twice a year, like ish.
Yeah, we try to go quarterly. We try to get people, quarterly? And then I try to get out. I travel probably 2 to 3 times a month, and each time I'm doing it, I'm with, you know, one of my reps or one of my team members or something like that. When we're at a conference, right, we get to be all together again. So it's like you're looking for these different moments because it just buys you another couple of weeks of working at home, because, man, it could be grueling. It's dark at 3 p.m. here. You're gross. Sitting at home.
It's gross.
It's brutal, right?
Yeah,
and so you have to have it. So
what about the people that don't show up to the events?
It's pretty clear, you know, barring a pregnancy, a travel issue, whatever else.
Where they stand. It's
pretty clear where they stand. It's a bit of a political statement, you know, and there's those because
you know, you're employee number 10, so you're a spokesperson, you're a leader in the company.
Sure.
You're gonna have that. Everything you're saying right now is just spewing, I'm a leader in the company. You obviously clearly enjoy where you're working, and you're the guy trying to get people to the event.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked you the question. What about the people when they don't come to the events? Like, what goes through your mind? Like, again,
it almost goes through my mind. I'm like, man, what we do is pretty hard. Like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, this is to me, this is what I look forward to. Is like, it's not like the requirement. It's like, this is the payoff.
There's just to play devil's advocate, because some of them, they're going to have the attitude of, buddy, I'm here 9 to 5 to get paid. I don't fucking care about this. I'm here. I
don't think we hire those people. We try not to hire, and I think we figure out if we have that when that happens. And so, like, people always ask me, like, what's the culture of the company? Why have you stayed here? You know, this and that. And like, the answer that I give is that I grew up, like, whether it was in my English class or playing volleyball in gym or at Parks program or whatever else, I always just gave a shit. I like cared even when I wasn't being paid to care. And sometimes you get ridiculed for that when you're younger. You get kind of made fun of. Why do you care about this so much? Why are you taking this so seriously? And then you find like a tribe of people that are all that person, and man, like that is fun. And so when you find someone that's like, this person doesn't care at all, like, it sticks out. Like you can feel it in the room. It's really, really strange.
Have you ever taken, okay, so let's say someone's on your sales team and you can tell they're not engaged.
Yeah.
They don't come to the company events. So now they're confirming that they're not engaged. What's going through your mind when you go to work the next week?
Depends, right? Is this person killing it? Unlikely.
Highly unlikely.
What are the numbers like, right?
That's a good point too. Well, if they're killing it, I don't do anything, Curtis.
Yeah, well, look, they're smashing their numbers, and this is how they like to operate. And maybe they're older in their career, they have a family, whatever else.
Yeah.
Different strokes, I suppose. But at the end of the day, when things get really tough, right, and we go through a harder time, and we need to lean on culture more, I don't know that I'm going to be able to lean on that person. And so it definitely sticks in my mind.
It's not, and again, like I'm not, people are probably thinking that I'm knocking, like you gotta go to all the company events and stuff. I'm not knocking that. It sends a signal, and I know what I'm getting.
Look, and I think you have to understand the investment that's being made. And I think our people that are here and are, everyone's so culturally aligned. It's like nearly culty, I'd say.
Yeah.
They understand that, like, I'm going to get to sit there with the founder or with me or one of the other early people and get direct from the horse's mouth, like, what we're trying to be doing here. And, like, they see that as, like, okay, for their career, like, I would pay my own way to go to this. And so that's really the majority of it. We've done a really good job protecting that culture inside the company. And I think a lot of people, like, have had it somewhere else, whether they were on a hockey team, like, we have, a few Parks people, like that's very culty as well. Or like there's different places that people come from that like that strong sense of community is for them their motivator, and they need to be part of a strong sense of community.
Yeah, I think that's very important. My opinion on the work from home stuff, I think it's absolutely I think it's terrible long run. And I think over time, the companies that do prioritize getting people back into the office, I mean, so this is the analogy that I always give. I don't think anyone's going to debate anymore that in the aggregate, people are more productive working from home than in the office. Right. I don't think anyone's going to debate that. And if you do debate that, I think you're an idiot. So it's like, so that's number one. But over time, let's even just say 5% more productive when you're working in the office. I think it's more than that, but let's just go with 5. Well, 5% compounded over the next 5 years, and then try over the next 10 years, you're going to be so far ahead of your competitors that are doing this 100% work from home stuff. That's not even going to matter.
I do a lot of hybrid days because I live close to the office.
Yeah.
So like yesterday, I worked from the
where's your office?
We're Park in Sherbrooke, right next to McGill. Okay. And I live in NDG, so I just bike there. Cool. And so, but like yesterday, I had 2 very important sales meetings that like I need to be really, really sharp. And my home office is very nicely set up. Like to me, it's a stage. And like I have a routine. I'm up early, coffee, water, workout, shower, get dressed, and then
Are you a cold plunge guy?
No, I'm not a cold plunge guy. But not yet. But I I've tried to do the cold shower thing, and I'm like, fuck this. But like I have a regimen to get ready for these presentations because like that's the highest leverage moment that I can be in. And so for me, it's like I need to be in that focus area, and then I'll go into the office and I'll be the leader for the rest of the day. And so for like I love a hybrid day when I can pull it off.
Interesting. So like it's like before a big sports game or something. You got to get in the zone. Like you have your routine to get into the zone. You do your thing.
If I have a presentation at 10, like that's really important. I'm not taking a meeting from 9 to 10. I don't care how important it is internally. The most important thing I can do is deliver at that 10 o'clock. You gotta prepare. It's disproportionately important. I'd rather be like well slept than something. You have to treat it. We're in high ticket sales, and there is a moment. There's a crucible moment in every deal where it's a yes or a no. And if it's that moment, and I'm the one giving the big pitch, like it's more important that I did my 45-minute bike ride that morning than it is that I went to some meeting at 9.
Have you guys gotten through any big crises? I'm talking, you walk in, you're like, fuck, I don't know if this company's going to be around in a month. And you had to come up with something drastic. You had to raise more money. Have you lived through something like that? You could say not really. Particular, yeah.
Not really, but not in the sense that it's always been good to go. I feel like we kind of operate on at any point this could be taken away from us. Like I think today we still operate that way. We operate like we don't fly first class to these places. We're not on private jet. Like we took Lynx Air down to, I don't know if you've ever taken Lynx Air, but it's like it's basically like, you know, it's worse than Spirit, but we call it Link's Luxury. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no TVs, there's no waters, there's no food service. But it's like, I don't know, like having a bit of that, you know, if you watch the All In podcast, that austerity measures, like having that mindset and staying in it. Like, I just think that's how you like keep the itch and you keep the hunger in what you're doing, because otherwise you get fucking bloated. Yeah. Culturally.
Yeah. And a lot of companies are like that right now.
So you kind of have to live a little bit in crisis mode at all times. So, and so we look for people that can handle that. Like, I think everybody in the world has a different degree of, they could be having the same issue, but for some person it's debilitating. They have to take 2 weeks off, and someone that's just what's between 9 and 9:05 that day. And so we're looking for people that have a pretty good crisis threshold.
Yeah,
they can
high tolerance.
Yeah, you can operate in it. It's like, man, like 4 bad things or 10 bad things are going to happen to me today. I'm sure it's on my phone right now. 2 bad things have happened, but like, as long as like the same amount plus 1 of good happens every day, we probably are moving forward.
That's what I found this so eye-opening, the way Mark Zuckerberg, he was talking to.
You think I'm like Mark? I agree. No, I've always thought that. I get that all the time.
No, but it just made me think about that. You're like, probably 2 bad things have happened by now. And so it was on Joe Rogan podcast or Lex Friedman, one of the big podcasts.
Sure.
But he's talking and he goes, yeah, like when I wake up in the morning, Facebook, international company, it's Facebook. Everyone knows Facebook or Meta or whatever.
He wakes up late to work every day.
Yeah. And so he'll wake up and he goes, you know, I'll go look at my phone. And if I have messages, goes, it's generally never good news. It's like, and just in my head, I'm like, fuck, this guy wakes up to that every day. But he just seems so accepting to it, which obviously is the way you have to be, or you're not going to be able to do that job. And so it's like such a mindset, and the guy does stuff. He obviously is a healthy individual. He does his jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
I'm sure he eats very well. But he was just, the way he was talking, he was so regimented with his thoughts and just gauging and keeping himself calm, or so it seemed. And I'm sure there's days where he wakes up and he's fucking like, holy shit, I'm fucking stressed. Like, this is not good. And, but I'm sure he has a lot of coping mechanisms.
Well, one of the sayings that like I've brought to our company is everything that blows up blows over.
Yeah.
And so you can't like freak out about it. Like, you're already going to be on to the next thing. Like, and so you have to move on. And but I think, you know, I'm sure he's got an amazing team around him, and we've done similar. I've been so lucky. Like, I have a like an executive coach who's a like world-class psychologist that I get to meet with. That like, he just works on me and reacting to those situations.
That's
and
awesome.
Like building that calmness or whatever else. And so you have to invest around it. You have to like that. When I think about like benefits to offer employees, like it's stuff around that actually we need to offer. It's not the cookies in the office.
So do you treat, it sounds like you treat this almost like a sports league. Yeah, the money's nice, I'm sure. It's like money is obviously part of it, but what motivates you more than the salary?
It's the success. It's like finding a success in something where it wasn't there before. And so we do treat it like, you know, going pro, or going pro as a athlete or as an actor or whatever else. And so it's like we hold ourselves to that level of standards, right? Like, we run trainings with our team on that level of standard. We've been, you know, reporting like a public business to our board for 6 years. Even though like because you just hold yourself to that level, so that when it comes, you know, when the moments haven't been too big for us, because we've always kind of been preparing for it. And so, but like I said, it's really not for everybody. Like, we've brought in people who are brilliant, who they've got in and gone like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Really? Yeah, it's okay.
It happens.
It is. Yeah. And so it's a really unique thing.
But you know what? I bet that wouldn't have happened if you hopped on a plane with them and took the plane back.
That's right. 100%. It's true, man. It's true. I'm going to pull it off one time. I'm going to hire someone on it. It's going to be the best hire I ever make in my life.
You know what? We should honestly clip that, and I bet you someone will see it. It's going to go viral, first of all.
Viral. Huge.
And
I won't even be able to walk the streets anymore.
Some executive's going to be on TikTok, and he's going to go like, man, these damn Canadians, I saw this clip, and I did it. Holy shit, it works. He's going to go.
I think so. Does everybody here listen to every episode?
No.
Come on. No. You're the boss here. If I'm walking by you in the office, I'm having that thing. I'll put it on two speeds. I'm not listening to this thing raw.
Yeah.
But you got to know, because then I'm seeing you in the kitchen. I'm working it in. No one, come on.
There's a couple guys that listen to, it's tough to listen to like an hour and a half podcast. I don't expect them to. I'm sure they see the clips and stuff like that.
My boss does a podcast. I'm listening to that podcast.
Yeah, but your boss is well, I don't have an answer for that. I don't know. But like, not if I haven't. Look, it's episode number 40.
Fair.
So I don't expect them to listen to every episode. And sometimes too, but I do enjoy getting the feedback. So Claudia, she'll listen to, she's my partner out in Ottawa. She runs the Ottawa office. Interesting town. And not a bad town, interesting town, different from Montreal. And she goes, she'll tell me, awesome episode. She'll text me. And then if she doesn't text me, I'll ask her, what'd you think of that one? She goes, yeah, it was boring. It was a really bad episode or stuff. But I like that.
This one's not going to be good for her. She's not going to like it. This is no good.
Jacob, this is a perfect place to leave it.
All right. We'll leave it here.
I really appreciate you coming on.
This is great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It was great to talk about this stuff.
I enjoyed your conversation.
You as well.
And it's very clear to see that you're enthusiastic about what it is that you do. Any last plugs you want to make before we close up here?
Last plugs, I had a bunch of people text me to shout them out. I didn't really shout any of them out, so I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
But
shout out Jeff Hamilton.
He gets enough. She's already been on the show.
I know.
Before me, it's no good. Yeah. No, it's all good, man. I appreciate it. Congrats on what you're doing here.
Thanks,
Congrats
man.
on 1 year almost. You'll make it there. And if you ever need me again, happy to answer stuff. And let's go for a beer sometime.
I will. I would like that. We should go grab a beer.
Let's do it.
This is the Freemium Podcast. I'm Curtis Killen. Thanks for joining in. See you next time.